Welcome to Day 63 on the Trail. We have 4 readings for today, from Acts 13 verses 1 through 12, Exodus 35 verse 30 through 36 verse 7, Job chapter 40 verse 1 through 42 verse 17, and the Wisdom of Solomon chapter 14 verses 12 through 31. As we approach the end of Job, we find 2 endings to the story. One is a type of epilogue, where he is given as much as he had prior to this experience. He lives twice as long as given in Psalm 90. He has another 10 children. His brothers and sisters return and offer him gold rings and money, which I assume he could have better used when he was actually suffering. And he ends his days in peace. However, the real ending for me appears in verses 1 through 6 of chapter 42, in which Job responds directly to God. Beginning in verse 1, Then Job answered the Lord, I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. And then Job quotes God, saying, Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me, which I did not know. Then Job again quotes God, Hear, and I will speak. I will question you, and you declare to me. I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. So what changed for Job? Why did he repent? We heard long arguments that spoke about God in the third person, as if God was a third party to what was happening. But then God stepped in. God made their discussions, above all, personal. Perhaps God is teaching Job and us that a relationship with God is in the first person and is infinitely more important than living comfortably in the third person. Perhaps we have here a reminder that for Job and for us, that our relationship with God is founded on trusting faithfulness, and that trust comes with patience. In the New Testament, Job is only mentioned once, and it is related to patience. From James chapter 5, beginning in verse 7. Be patient, therefore, beloved, until the coming of the Lord. The farmer waits for the precious crop from the earth, being patient with it until it receives the early and late rains. You also must be patient. Strengthen your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is near. Beloved, do not grumble against one another, so that you might not be judged. See, the judge is standing at the doors. As an example of suffering and patience, beloved, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. Indeed, we call blessed those who showed endurance. You have heard of the endurance of Job, and you have seen the purpose of the Lord, how the Lord is compassionate and merciful. In the Wisdom of Solomon chapter 14, we have an interesting discussion of the development and dangers of idolatry. While the Bible repeatedly discusses the perils of placing anything before God, and this includes the incident with the golden calf that we saw back in Exodus 32, the author of the Wisdom of Solomon adds insight into the social and cultural impacts of idolatry as well. However, I would like to briefly discuss verse 14, which reads, When people could not honor monarchs in their presence, since they lived at a distance, they imagined their appearance far away and made a visible image of the king whom they honored, so that by their zeal they might flatter the absent one as though present. While this is not directly related to idolatry, the author describes the practice of rulers who placed images or statues of themselves in foreign or occupied territories to remind the populace who reigned over them. This practice, as described by the author of the Wisdom of Solomon, might provide some insight into one possible understanding of Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 through 28, which says, Then God said, Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Over the years, a lot of ink has been spilled over the meaning of the image of God, the Imago Dei. Some believe that somehow we look like God or physically reflect his image. Some suggest that we reflect God's spiritual qualities, or intellect, or even his personality. Others believe that being created in the image of God means that we have the opportunity to have a relationship with God, that we are aware enough or intellectually capable enough to know God. However, perhaps the image of God has a far more practical meaning. As the Wisdom of Solomon seems to indicate, in the ancient Near East, citizens of distant, occupied lands would most likely never see their ruler. Therefore, a king would commission a statue to be erected in remote villages or cities depicting his image, as a reminder of who had dominion over them. I believe God is doing something similar here with you and me. God has placed us here on the earth as representatives of his dominion. We were created to be accountable, trustworthy, and reliable representatives of God in the real world. We were commissioned to continue the creative work of God. That is our human responsibility, and it is inescapable. In Psalm 8, we find this: You, God, made humanity master over the works of your hands. You have placed all things under their feet, flocks and cattle, all of them, even the beasts of the field, birds of the heavens and fish of the sea, those traveling the paths of the sea. We cannot excuse ourselves from our shared duty or to leave the task to someone else. But that responsibility should not intimidate us or frighten us into inactivity or apathy. The task before us is not a chore to be undertaken reluctantly or resentfully. We have been created to be creative. We have been created to make a lasting, positive contribution on the real world. We have been created to create a world where together we can dream about the future. We were created in the image of God. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, stay on the trail.